exist. It is currently executed as a free-for-all, which sometimes causes uneasiness between beekeepers themselves, and then also between beekeepers and the public. Rumors and accusations are quickly thrown around by beekeepers that had to rescue a removal task messed up by a previous person, and then all the use of poison just to kill a colony. Removals are done from free of charge to extreme overpriced quotations. And then lastly, there are currently a lot of new upcoming members to beekeeping with no or very little knowledge on bee removals, hence this presentation. It was quite a challenge for me to put a virtual presentation together on an entire practical topic or exercise, but I'm confident that we will reach the desired end result. In the first 30 minutes, we will deal with all the administrative details before we will cover the practical removal methods in 2 sessions of 35 minutes each. In between, I will allow time out for a break, so we won't sit here for 2 solid hours. So sit back, fasten your safety belts, because we're going to deal with a lot of information and lots of technical explanations. I just want to also give credit to Claude Marcella, assisting me to put all the literature together, especially to translate to the English side, because I'm a boerklong. Okay, what has happened already? You will see that about a month ago we covered on the bee removal WhatsApp group for WCBA, the description paragraph on the WhatsApp group that was updated or put together. Currently, there are only 32 members on the bee removal WhatsApp group. I would like to get more people there so that we can deal with bee removals on that one group. Then secondly, a document for the standards on with regards to the WhatsApp group were published also on the group itself. And then I drafted an example of a bee removal agreement. I think it's important that we step up and get professional and submit a removal agreement between the beekeeper, remover, and then for that matter, the client. What is coming next is today this presentation. There's 2 documents that I've drafted. The one is the guidelines for bee removals. And then the next one is the practical training notes. I've combined those 2 documents into this presentation for the day. These documents will all be made available on the WCBA website. And just take cognizance that there's a public domain that's available on the website, and then there's also a domain or a tab just for the members area. The members area is specific only for subscribed members, and you need to log in with a password to get in there. And I think this practical training notes will only be available in future there. For the rest of the presentation that we're going to start now, I'm going to put my mic off just to make it easier and for concentration for everybody. Not my mic, my camera, sorry. Just confirm, James, is it visible and is the sound clear, please?
Yeah, we can hear you and see the screen, yes.
Good, right, let's go. The scope of this presentation today, we're going to deal with the Department of Agricultural Land Reform and Rural Development. Thereafter, only department, the definitions has been given by them. We're going to look at the mandate for bee removals, then description of a bee removal, a short introduction. What is a problem bee colony? Then the potential risky behavior of bees. We're going to look at professionalism and integrity. Then some guidelines and advice for beekeepers. The methods of removals. The relocation of a colony. And then the practical training guidelines that will specifically address all the different methods of removals. First, according to the Act, this is what is subscribed and what is written. What is beekeeping activities? That means the keeping of honeybees in a managed beehive for the production and harvesting of any bee products for queen rearing purposes, for commercial pollination services, or the removal, that is what this is about, eradication or relocation of honeybee colonies. Registration, every person who carry out any beekeeping activities shall register with the department. It's important. Only if it is one hive, a hobbyist with one hive, the Act said you must register. Important to take note of the last paragraph. This is specifically in the Act for the beekeeper. No person may conduct any beekeeping activities unless they are in possession of a valid registration certificate issued in terms of the control measures. It's 2.1, and the Act that I'm talking about is the Agricultural Pest Act 1983, is Act number 36 of 83. Just take note of the difference between this paragraph that's in the Act specifically for the beekeeper, and the next paragraph is written for the public. No person may utilize the service of a beekeeper for the purposes of carrying out any beekeeping activities. So now the onus is on the public to make sure that if they contract the service of a beekeeper, that person is registered and in possession of a valid certificate. The public needs to be educated and cautioned on the risks and potential threatening behavior of honeybees. The handling, removing of colonies need to be left to registered beekeepers that are trained, have protective clothing, have expert knowledge in the managing of honeybees. This, however, doesn't make you a big shot and a show-off to impress bystanders or the public because you are not afraid to tackle a threatening colony of bees. You must deliver a service, not try to impress by wearing a suit and not being afraid of doing a removal. The description of a bee removal, a slogan or motto that is very much applicable, is only remove problem bee colonies and in an ethical and humane manner. We're going to deal with what is a problem bee colony later on. A bee removal is the successful transfer of a bee colony from its natural nesting area into a man-made managed beehive, and then the safe relocation to an apiary site afterwards. It is not getting rid of most of the bees in a colony from the natural nesting area and then getting paid for the effort. Now, this is where all the rumors and accusations are flying around and the beekeeping fraternity is not that big. So it's very often that the message is running through the public and the beekeeping people about members that making, in inverted commas, a mess, try to remove a colony, leave the area, and the next day half of the swarm is still back at the natural nesting area. Introduction: honeybees prefer nesting in dark and secluded cavities, openings in trees, ditches, caves, foxholes, air vents, refuge or compost bins, animal shelters, you name it, that are protected from the various elements of nature. It's not desirable to the colony or its productivity. You may, however, sometimes find them building their nest open in the wild. Due to human developments, urbanization, deforestation, expansion of agricultural croplands, and so forth, the feral population of bees are forced to nest in desirable places, near human dwellings, structures, offices, and places of public gathering or leisure, and posing a life risk to humans, animals, and livestock. It is normally during springtime that an increase in the amount of requests for bee removals is experienced. Colony buildup and expansion in size occurs as a result of forage abundance. The nesting area becomes inadequate, the splitting of the swarm takes place, and the public then experience the track swarms, scouting, nesting in and around their normal safe environment. High volumes of swarming in the Western Cape are experienced from September to March. Over the years, the swarming period has changed for most areas due to various climate conditions and forage availability for colonies. You will also experience an increase in honeybee activities by means of track swarms moving closer to available larger numbers of flowering crops at different periods of time. For example, in the Boland region, with canola, flowering canola, it's from July to August. If you can include the Overberg, Southern Cape, then it may start from June already. There's just a photo or two, me doing a removal from a dog kennel. Invasion of deforestation, expanding of croplands, and there's a nice picture of a flowering canola farm. So what I'm saying is it's already in July, within a week or two, because of the flowering canola. You will expect the start of track swarms because of the abundance of forage. What is the problem colony? It poses a threat to humans, animals, and livestock in terms of its proximity to the daily movement of working area. There's a history of regular stinging episodes that occurred. There is constant human or animal traffic across the flight path of the colony. Fourthly, falling comb. If the nest is in a tree or a roof of a building, from the nest to the ground. Now, sometimes people say the nest is about 4 meters up in a tree. It's out of the flight path, or there's not human or animal traffic across their flight path. Why do the removal? Now you get, because of this reason, you can experience falling comb, and then on the walkway or the sidewalk or on the ground, it attracts bees from nearby colonies. People walk in the comb, and then you get bees that becomes a nuisance, and a removal is necessary. Then lastly, A problem colony is a colony obstructing essential services. For instance, fire hydrants, electrical substations, or water valves. What is a potential risky colony? What triggers them? What makes them a nuisance? There's a couple of issues. Firstly is vibrations around the nesting area. For example, a lawnmower, an idling engine, a colony that's next to a fence by a gate. You need to stop with a tractor. The tractor is idling. You get the smoke, you get everything, the vibration, and it upsets the bees, and you can get stinging episodes. Strong smell and sense. The smell of cut grass, two-stroke smoke, the smell of plowed soil, sweat and burning plastic. Now, if you look at this, you can see the reason why so many stinging episodes occur with people that's busy mowing their lawn. Because it's the smell of grass, it's the vibration of a lawnmower, it's the two-stroke smoke, and sweat is going along with that. It's upsetting for the bees, and then they will go in a defensive mode and start a stinging episode. Another thing that creates a potential risky behavior is if the bee is getting sprayed with chemicals, insecticides, objects being thrown at the nest, or water being sprayed at the nest. Then lastly, a dry swarm. A dry swarm is a colony that's on the move due to starvation or hunger. And sometimes it's difficult to determine prior. It's just, are you dealing just with a track swarm, or is it a dry swarm? So you're not always definitely sure until you start to work with them, then you've realized. Because the normal track swarm is not that defensive. And look at professionalism and integrity of removals. The first thing that's important is abide by the Western Cape Bee Industry Association Code of Conduct. That will be available on the website also. Then, if it is not a problem colony, like explained just now, leave it undisturbed in its natural habitat. The only way to sustain and increase the federal honeybee population is to leave them splitting and swarming off in its natural biological process. Therefore, a beekeeper must think carefully of only do bee removals left, right, and center. To increase their own number of managed hives, or to increase their bank account by getting paid for removals, or getting paid for the reselling of bee colonies. Always test your actions again. Am I doing the removal for my own benefit or to the advantage and success of the bee industry?
Gerhard, can you just hang on a minute? There's somebody else whose mic is on. I think, Tim, your mic is on. Please mute your mic. Thanks.
Thank you, James. Number 4, have your department registration number and certificate. Have your WCB. Do a thorough assessment and planning of the removal. Provide realistic and detailed quotation to the client. And this is something new, and we're going to work to this where possible and explain the quotation beforehand. When you overcharge a client for removal, you can be guaranteed a dead colony. They will simply choose the easy option of killing the bees. So it's important to be realistic when doing a quote. I've seen so many requests on Facebook and on WhatsApp groups all around, day in and day out. What is a going rate for bee removal? There cannot be a going rate. Each and every removal must be assessed and planned and quoted on what the cost is going to be involved for the job. Travel time and distances has an influence. There's influence of if you need to hire equipment like scaffolding, chainsaw, jackhammer. So each and everything must be included, do a proper quotation, and get to a realistic price. Then sign a written bee removal agreement with the client. Now this has been, I can open it quickly. I've drafted this and on the letterhead of the association. It's going to take you 10 minutes to complete this. Just print it out, keep it with you. You put in the landowner's name and the address, your business name, your department number and the expiry date of your certificate, your own name, and then just a small description of where the colony, what is the position of the colony, is it in a wall, a cavity, water meter, the period that you're going to be dealing with the removal, because a trap-out can be longer. A shaking is like in half an hour. Then you just tick. It's already, everything has been written here. The responsibilities for the beekeeper. You just tick yes or no. What's applicable with a specific removal. And then there's space for the landowner or the occupier or the agent or whoever you are dealing with. Just to tick. Then the amount and when it will be paid, and you sign an agreement. And Bob's your uncle. It will take you 10 minutes to complete this. If we sign up, the last slide on this part of professionalism is all about the P's and the B's. It's professionalism. If you apply the 5 P's, then you will get to your end result. It's proper planning, prevents poor performance. Lastly, with regards to this, what I usually applied is, I never invoiced and getting paid for removal if the colony is not being successfully transferred. Because if you start with a removal and you can't finish it and you don't get the bees out, then I never took payment. And what is important in this is check with the client if there's such an occurrence of infestation of bees is not covered in his or her insurance policy. Just remember, then you will have to have proper invoicing in place, because the invoice will go to the insurance company to cover the costs. And it is possible, and it happens. Next slide, we're going to look at the guidelines and advice for beekeepers. An excellent practice as a beekeeper is using baited or lured catch boxes in strategic places and let the pharaoh or track swarm move into a box in its natural fashion and then being managed in future thereafter. There's a much higher guarantee for sustainability of a swarm moving into a catch box and become a productive unit versus a swarm that's being put through all the stress in the removal process and then a plus minus 40% risk of a abscond. What I used to do previously was wherever you do a removal, ask the landowner or the homeowner or the owner of the premises, whoever it may be, if you can, after removal, leave a catch box in a strategic place on the premises. Because the chances of getting a swarm into a catch box at that premises are very high. We used over the past 6 to 7 years about 55 boxes permanently at people's residence where removals were done, and those boxes always catches track swarms. Then they don't move into an undesirable place, an air vent or whatever on the premises. They will rather choose your baited catch box. During the high swarming period, you will find the colony hanging open in a tree. It's going to happen from now on, or hanging in a shrub, a fascia overhang, or whatever, from where they will scout for possible nesting areas. They're just hanging there. It's not their nesting area yet. They will scout from there for possible nesting areas, just to have a rest or to overnight. During this period, they don't pose any threat. Always determine from the client all the details about the colony when you get a call. Firstly, is it honeybees? Is it wasps? Or is it yellow jackets? When did the swarm arrive there? The exact location of the swarm, is it in the cavity, air vent, treetop, compost bin? And what is the size of the colony? Describe it in the size of a rugby ball or a soccer ball or whatever. You get and obtain the details of the contact person, the address and the telephone number. If you look at this, with a resting swarm that's on the move, I think it's unethical to charge a client for the removal of a resting colony. And you know pretty well that it will move on within the next 24 or 48 hours and gonna nest somewhere else. I usually explain to a client the issue about the dynamics with regards to track swarms. And I ask them if it's a real problem at that time, does it pose a risk? Are they afraid for children and dogs, pets, whatever? If they can live with a swarm hanging there in a tree in the garden for another 12 hours, most probably the swarm will move on, and by tomorrow afternoon, they will be gone. Don't just do a bee removal and charge the person, and you know the swarm may be gone by the next day. Advise the client about the risk and stress of bees when doing a removal during the colder months and the possibility of losing the whole colony. Removals by means of a one-way trap or a funnel are definitely not recommended during winter. Make an appreciation of all the positive and negative influences and risks, then decide if the removal is absolutely necessary at that time. The smell of honey and wax propolis left behind in the nesting area will attract the scout bees of the next swarm and guarantee the probability of future nesting in the same spot. The beekeeper therefore needs to remove all the physical comb with honey and propolis from the nesting site and leave the property neat and tidy to prevent bee activity from nearby colonies. Responsibilities with regards to sealing off and or clearing of the nesting area, as well as the restoring of dismantled structures of walls, of air vents, ceilings, window house floor, must be finalized between the client and the beekeeper and indicated as such on the signed bee removal agreement. This will have a definite influence on the costing and must be indicated in a detailed quotation. Always conduct your operations within the boundaries of the Occupational Health and Safety Act. Remember that the property owner, he or her, will be kept liable for any injuries or incidents occurring during the removal operation on his or her premises. That's the law. The use of harnesses and safety ropes, safety gear, a bee smoker and fire prevention equipment are very important. And then ensure the serviceability of your removal gear, your tools and your equipment. Arrangements for the supplying of water and electricity by the client, as well as access to the property, must be confirmed in the agreement. Then restrict access to the removal site for the public or bystanders by means of danger tape and or warning signs. The client must inform all the neighbors in advance of the period of the removal and explain the possible risk and threats of maybe stinging episodes that can occur. Important to take notice that to be offered a bee colony for free as remuneration for the bee removal task is not an option. The beekeeper provides a specialized service. You need to maintain equipment, you spend time and fuel, which costs need to be covered. And the sustainability of the removed swarm cannot be guaranteed. And the abscond rate of such colonies can be estimated plus minus 40%. So it's not an option. You must get paid for the job that's been done, the time and spend, the labor, fuel and everything. Make a clear distinction in your agreement of who takes ownership afterwards of the colony, the comb, the honey and the propolis. Because sometimes there's arguments of you do the removal, but the colony stays with the owner of the property. Or who's taking the honey that's coming from the removal site. Make sure everything has been clear in your agreement. Next slide is, I'm just going to mention, this is the part where the next two sessions afterwards will cover all the practical explaining on the types of removals. I've just named them. There's 6, and then the 7th one you will see is extermination. A plain and simple shaking or brush off. Then you do cutouts to open up and dismantle and removing all comb. Then there's a forced abscond. You see there's no access to the comb. Fly and smoke and the colony will leave the nesting area. Then you get the bee vacuum method. Then there's combinations of the bee vac with shake-ins, cutouts and forced absconds, which is not difficult to understand. Number 6 is a one-way trap, where you put a funnel, a cone, one-way trap out. It's got a lot of different names. Then the last is extermination. Extermination is done with the following. It's going to be explained later on at the end. Extermination is for problematic colonies. It depends on the urgency of the removal. Is it the removal or do you need to exterminate? Inaccessible colonies. And then colonies with American foulbrood. That needs to be exterminated. Important to remember that the method of removal being applied sometimes depends on the client's preference due to the possible extent of the structural damage that you needs to pay and cost to restore, as well as the time constraints and urgency of the removal. The beekeeper must give advice on the different removal options. The different removal options imply different periods of time that will be spent on the removal. A fast abscond can take 3 minutes versus a trap out that will take a minimum of 4 weeks. During a trap out, the beekeeper will have to do regular visits to the removal site. This has an influence on the cost quoted, as well as arrangements for access to the property, and need to be discussed in detail with the client. In this regard, the client has the final say in terms of the preferred method for removal given, under advice and options provided by the beekeeper. Good. Relocation of the colony. A bee colony, there's different views on this. So I covered much more from the least to the most. A bee colony forages in a maximum distance radius from 2.5 up to 6 kilometers, depending on the amount and quality of forage available. Different forage distances are determined by availability and accessibility of different forage sources. Therefore, a safe option to apply is by relocating or moving a colony to an apiary site that is at least 5 kilometers away from the removal site. This must also be discussed with the client to give him or her the assurance that the removed colony will not return to the same nest. Bear in mind that the cleanup process after removal must also be thorough, so that the establishment of a new colony in the same following season is limited. If possible, discuss it with the client. The colony can be left at the removal site for 14 days before relocation occurs. That will just give them ample time to reorientate and settle in their new home. Always do a relocation and movement of the beehive after dark. I think this is where a lot of problems occur in removals. Do the relocation after dark and confirm access to the property with the client. Make sure that the whole swarm and all the forager bees are in the hive. Block the entrances and relocate. When longer distances are traveled with a closed beehive, ensure that the hive is well ventilated by adding an empty super, a travel screen, or for that matter, then a top feeder, and use low density material to block the entrances. This will prevent overheating and or suffocation of the bees. This is a top feeder that we used to have on each and every hive permanently. It's about 50 millimeters. Where's my cursor now? This groove here is the access to this top feeder fits just on top of your brood box. Then this groove was opening allows access from the bottom, from the brood box, to the top into this top feeder. This is where we used to feed with sugar water with plastic bags also. Then on each and every side, there's a 3 millimeter, 2 millimeter to 3 millimeter, the width of a blade of a saw on all 4 sides. This works, trust me, for movement of colonies, because it allows for ample ventilation, and you get happy bees at when you open the hive again. How to deal with a removal request? This will be the last slide, and we can take a break. Request the client to forward you all the necessary and relevant information. Like I've explained previously, under the heading of the guidelines, try to get it in writing on a WhatsApp or email or text message. It just makes it easier to forward it to the next person if you're not going to take the task, and to publish it on the WhatsApp group, or for that matter on the website or the email. First thing, handle the request yourself, or forward request and a WCBA WhatsApp group. Make sure you have consent from the client to publish his or personal information to a public social media space. It's very important, especially now that the POPI Act is very much in place and going to be forced. You cannot just post pictures of premises or property and personal information of addresses and telephone numbers without the consent of that person. So make sure you got the consent before you publish it. Then you can refer the client to the Western Cape Bee Association website. Under the tab of service providers, currently there's a couple of people listed, beekeepers. And then the client can make a choice of who's available in the applicable area where he stays. Or you can forward the names of non-beekeepers that you know doing removals to the client. Always offer your future assistance if you've got a call. Offer your future assistance in case the client did not receive any service, as mentioned in the above 3 paragraphs. And then important is the first beekeeper taking on the removal task. You need to indicate that in a WhatsApp group. Just inform, I'm taking it, I'm phoning. Otherwise, you're going to waste other beekeepers' time to do assessments and phone calls and quotes, or you create unnecessary calls to the client by other beekeepers. Okay, that's it for the first part. We're going to allow time for questions. James, are you there?
Yeah, Gerhard, thanks very much for that. I've just got one thing quickly to add to that very last point of yours. The first person who's accepting the bee removal that's indicated on the WhatsApp group to actually post on the WhatsApp group that they are taking it. On top of that, if you've gone to inspect the site and you decide not to take it after your inspection, please post that on the WhatsApp group as well. We've had a lot of occasions where people have said they take in the bee removal, and on phoning up, or if the client doesn't want to pay, then they refuse again to take the bee removal, and the client is still waiting for people to contact them for bee removals, and the person who was supposed to do it has now not indicated they're not doing it anymore. So please always post if you said you were going to take it and for whatever reason you can't do it, please post that it's available again. But are there any other questions for Gerhard? Come guys, there must be some questions. This is a lot of content that Gerhard has covered, a lot of legal aspects, a lot of practical aspects, tips, contracts, all that. Are there any questions that anybody has to ask on that?
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm busy working on a chimney removal. It's the first time. I'm very new to this. It's in a chimney that is part of a national monument, so I wasn't allowed to touch it really, and I'm doing a trap out. I'm just wondering, at the end of it all, I could not get my arm down to actually reach the comb, so it was completely inaccessible. Just wondering, Gerhard saying that you need to remove all the comb, etc. You know, if one can't reach it physically just with your arm, is there any other method that I could potentially get rid of some of that comb at the end?
Banshee will take care of that, wax moth. If you can't if it's impossible to reach the cone, then you can't reach the cone, and you can't do a physical dismantle of the structure. So the wax moth will take over. They will clean that up. It's just important that we indicate that to the client. That it also creates another problem with attracting the next swarm in the meantime. But when you remove the colony and you leave the cone like that, there will be ants. First thing, the ants will take over after the sweetness of the honey. So that will be for a while until the honey is finished. And then wax moth will clean out the whole area. And that is the nature's process. I hope it answers your question.
Gerhard.
Thanks, Gerhard. Then
Go ahead.
sorry, can I just follow that up then? If nature will take its course, then after about four weeks or so, we can actually then potentially close the top of that chimney to seal it.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Red, do you have an input?
Yeah, I just want to state you must tell the people, the homeowners, because that's one problem that I always had with people doing bee removals, and then I had to go back and clean the mess that they caused. If you leave the comb, the wax moth will come on, and they will have little maggots and things sometimes falling down the chimney if it's on the inside, and the same if it's in the cavity between the chimney walls, then it's something different. But say for instance in a ceiling where that maggots then crawl, and in the end the worms, small little and then they end in the house, and so they call you in and they're furious because you now caused this. So it's better if you rather properly explain things to the people beforehand.
Excellent input, Red. Thank you. Yeah.
And then, Gerhard, there's a question on the chat. Guy wants to know what would be a fair hourly rate for labor when calculating your quotation, and that's excluding your travel and all that type of thing. So what would be a fair hourly rate for labor?
I've done it myself very long ago. But I think you can compare with people like plumbers or electricians and so on. Because there's also, I think there's two different options. If we're going to go forward in future and work on a framework for a quotation sheet, make it available to everybody, then I think you've got the option for either make a standard a call-out fee, say 450 or 500 rand. It's my call-out fee. Now you include a lot of consumables what you're going to use. If you're going to use chemicals or mothballs or whatever, and cleaning your equipment. And then you add on your distance travel. And then you add on after the first hour, then you add per hour a labor fee. I don't know, what is a good labor fee? 200, 250. A normal cutout from a bin or a fascia, a soffit, it took about 3 hours. What is 3 hours work worth? 800 rand, if it is a short distance. I think you need to take in account the distance that you are traveling from where you are to the removal site. Because there's people that some charge 1,600 and then it is a 2 hours job. It's not on. And the word is going around about it. Be realistic. Check with other similar types of services. I've done removals about 3 years ago. But we will work on this in future. That's my totally the last point on my presentation for today is the need that we look into a framework for a quotation. I've put some thoughts together already, but we can look at that at the end of the presentation. I don't know, I haven't got a clear answer, but we need to work out something, hourly rates or whatever.
Thanks, Gerhard. Are there any other questions before we move on to the next section? Any other questions?
James, is it necessary to take a break for 5 minutes, or are we going to carry on?
Gerhard, if you need to take a break, we can do that. But if you're comfortable on carrying on, I think we can do that as well. I think anybody who's need to quickly run out has had a short opportunity now during the questions to run out. So if you're comfortable with carrying on, then please do.
Okay, good. Then we will carry on. We're going to deal now. Let me just close this text box here that I can see. We're going to discuss now the methods that was mentioned. If we look at the shaking or brush off, this can be applied with a relatively new swarm, 1 to 2 days after arrival. It's a cluster in an open surface, an easily accessible structure like a branch, a gate, a gutter, whatever. And no comb, or almost no comb, has been built yet. And the queen has not started laying. So it's straightforward. Just remember, measure it still to, is it a problem? If it is a problem, then this type of swarm need to be removed. How to prepare your beehive, your box, before you start with the removal? You must decide, are you going to use a nuke or a brood box? That will depend on the size of the swarm. If this is a large swarm, you add a super to your brood box. How do you know the size of the swarm? You must do an assessment prior to your removal. Sometimes this easy, the shaking and brush off, you don't have to physically go there. It can be determined on a photo. Then you will know the size of the swarm. Position 1 to 4 in your box. Prepare 1 to 4 and 7 to 10. I've made it, give you a visual there. You prepare brood frames with either full wax foundation or drawn cone. Remember, drawn cone from a disease-free colony, if you have that. You can see these ones are just built out on canola and removed straight away. There was not even eggs laid in them. And then in position 5 and 6 in the middle, you use 2 strip frames. Why 2 strip frames? This young swarm that haven't built any comb yet, or the queen hasn't started to lay eggs, they still need to cluster together. If you put in 10 frames, build-out frames, or wax foundation, there's no space in the inside of the box for them to form a ball and cluster together. And this just gives them ample time in a box to reorientate themselves, and they need to cluster together for the first while for heat. Otherwise, you separate the colony between the frames, and it's not good for them. How do you transfer? Easy, straightforward. Start with a couple of gentle cold smoke. White smoke is cold smoke puffs, and pine needles is good source to use, or hessian, damp hessian, or I think you can use leaves from the gums also. This will calm the bees, and also remember, be calm yourself. A bee colony can feel your body language. If you are calm, they will be calm. You can start with a very light, fine mist spray over this ball hanging there of sugar water. This will keep them as a ball together for a longer period of time, because they will now first start grooming each other, and it gives you time to deal with them while hanging on the and preparing and put your box, get your box ready or whatever. But please never overdo the spray and totally wet the bees. Remember, the respiratory organs are located on their body, from the thorax up to the end, and there are 10 pairs of them. A motto that you can remember is: a wet bee is a dead bee. In the case of a hanging swarm, like in a branch, just remove the inner frames 4 to 7, and fit the box underneath as close as possible to the swarm. Make sure there are no obstructing branches or leaves between the box and the swarm. Then you give the branch a really hard knock with a 4-pound hammer. The whole swarm, queen and all, will drop into the box. You replace the frames 4 to 7 as soon as possible. Important, take care not to push down on the frames to prevent squashing the bees underneath. Put them back gently, leave them on top of the bees, and as the bees move upwards, the frames will steadily drop into position by their own weight. I've seen that many and many times, and I've got later on a video clip where you will experience this also. Then you close up the hive with a lid. When a swarm is clustering on a very thin branch, cut the branch with a swarming awl very carefully, without shaking them, using pruning shears. Use a brood box as explained above with the same frames, and replace frames 4 to 7. When a swarm clusters to a vertical surface or object, like for a wall, maneuver your box underneath. As prepared, the same box with the same frames. Remove the inner 4 to 7, and you just brush the bees off with a honey brush, or make use of a scoop and scoop them in. When a swarm clusters to a, sorry, I've explained that now. If you get bees returning to the spot where you transferred them, from where you transferred, do the pheromone smell that stays there, just scoop them up and add them to the rest of the colony. You will see later on, this is also where a bee bag can be used. It is normal that when you shake the bees from the branch, that where they were sitting, that the pheromone smell of the queen will still be there, and they want to go back there. Just scoop them off, add them to the colony. They will keep on going there because they can smell it. In the case of where you cut a branch and shake the bees off into the box with the branch in your hand, keep the branch next to the hive because the smell is still there. Keep it close by the box so that you can get the bees in the vicinity of the box that you are using. Okay, then alternatively to all this, then you can just locate or spot the queen cage and fit between the 2 top bars in the hive. Then you shake off or scoop the rest of the colony in front of the hive entrance. The colony will pick up the queen's pheromone and move into the hive. There is a picture of a queen cage. There's ample different types of queen cages available. There's one that looks like the clip. That's currently, I think, most of the people using the clip. It looks like a big hair clip. You can use a normal hair curler, and you pluck the 2 ends, top and bottom, with a marshmallow when you get the queen in. The rest of the bees will chew open the marshmallow and release the queen after a while, because you need her to be in the cage for a while inside the box, and they will automatically release her by chewing off open the marshmallow. There must be openings. This one is one that I've made myself. It's a piece of electric pipe, conduit pipe. It's blocked it, seal it off on the one end, cut in 2 slits. There must be ventilation, and the rest of the nursing bees will cluster around the queen and feed her. And you close the other end with a piece of cork. Attached to it is a piece of rope. You will see later on in a picture. Then you can hang this queen cage inside the box, and the lid will keep it in place by putting it on top of the rope. And there's my scoop, 2-liter milk bottle. Cut it at the bottom with an angle. You can get a 3-liter, 2-liter, and you can scoop up a lot of bees. You remember with the bees in a colony like that, sitting there, they normally feels like candy floss. They stick together, and you scoop up like in 2 liters of bees or 2 kilograms easily, and you just transfer them from into the box. There's just a photo. You can see it's not always possible to move frame 4 to 7. In this case, 5 to 8 were removed, or 6 to 8 were 9 to were removed, because the hive couldn't get more to the right because of the obstructions. So place the hive underneath, already prepared. Knock the branch. This whole swarm will drop into the box. Put the frames back on top. Let them climb up. Put the lid on. Don't squash them. This is a normal branch that were cut with the whole swarm attached to it. Very carefully. You can walk around with them. That's where to keep them in this position is using a light sugar spray, but very carefully. A light misty spray over the bees. Now they will start grooming each other, and they will stay together. Don't wet them. This is a brush off. Put the box underneath and brush them into, or use the scoop and scoop them into the box. As easy as that. Couple of practical tips on shakings or brush offs. These tips will be applicable to all the other methods. You will see as we go along. You can burn the inside of a new beehive with a piece of newspaper, just to disguise the overwhelming smell of wood and pine. And the bees love the smell of the burning smell on the inside. They love it. The beehive can be lit with commercial bee lure, or 2 drops of lemongrass oil, or heat propolis and blow torch and smear the propolis with a putty knife to the hive floor. Never use more than 2 pure drops of lemongrass oil on its own as a lure. Please, trust me, been there, done that. The overwhelming strong smell of lemongrass oil will rather chase them out of if excessive amounts are used. I've seen that because of the blurred vision through the veil and the sun in the wrong position, direction. I made a mistake with 5 or 6 drops. The swarm went in and went out in the same time. Fortunately, I had another box on the removal side, the clean box. I swapped the 2, and they took ownership of the box without the extra lemongrass oil. It is believed that the best results for the transfer of a colony and for them to accept the beehive is to place them in front of the hive entrance and let them walk in by own choice, not to scoop them up and throw them in. This is the belief that it's better to rather you drop them in front of the entrance, let them take ownership of the hive by own choice. And the excellent practice is to use a piece of whiteboard, 420 by 420 millimeters, and place it in an upwards angle to the hive entrance. Then you drop the bees on that, and they will walk in by nature, bees love it to walk. First thing, they walk upwards. They don't walk downwards. Their choice is to go up. So that's why I create an angle for them and make sure there are no openings between the hive and the hardboard. Scoop the bees onto the hardboard. I've mentioned this now, by nature, bees prefer to start walking in an upwards direction. That is the reason for the angle. Why a whiteboard? If the queen walks on the board into the hive, it's very easy to spot her if the background is white. It just makes it easier, then you will see her. And I've seen that a couple of times. When the queen is in the hive, a lot of the workers will put their heads down, facing the hive, bottoms up, and they will start fanning the pheromone smell outwards to the rest of the colony. That will give them the direction to follow. I think most of you have seen that. Just bear with us, please, because there's very new upcoming beekeepers that still need to experience this, and that is why we went into all this detail. If they don't face the hive and start fanning, then the queen is on the other side. Then they will call the bees that's in the hive, they will call them out. So the proper way is when the bees, the workers, his heads down, they're facing the hive entrance, then they will start fanning and they spread the pheromone outwards. Never ever over smoke a colony. Too much smoke can make them airborne again. Then they will start flying around. They will break their cohesion and you disorientate them. And it also can make them noisy and cause runny tummies. Normally, when you got the colony or the queen, you can see her inside, then you still want to smoke here and smoke there and sit back, relax, and just watch them. Give them time. Too much smoke can deter the smell of the pheromone. You can disguise the queen's pheromone and they don't know where they are, where she is. So don't over smoke. We'll also be wise to support the colony afterwards with a 1-to-1 sugar water mix. 1 kilo of sugar with 1 liter of water. And or you can use a pollen substitute. And it's always best practice to feed internally to prevent robbing and fighting. You must remember this colony needs to start to build wax now. And bees can use up to 12 kilos of honey to produce 1 kilo of wax. So the conversion rate is very high. If you can assist them with sugar water, it will help. Then try not to spill sugar water or uncapped honey in the hive. Uncapped honey from the same colony. Please never use to feed the bees with honey in frames from other colonies. So try not to spill that because it will attract unwanted ants to the box. Then you can make use of supporting brackets to securely position your hive during removal. And then lastly, as a tip, is a queen trap is an option to place in front of the hive entrance to force the queen to stay inside. This remains, however, a cruel method to apply. You can apply it for the first 30 minutes, hour, while busy doing the removal. And you know the queen is inside and you still need to get the rest of the colony to proceed to the hive. But I don't believe in leaving a queen trap on. A queen trap is put in front of the entrances. Also, you need to remember that if you put a queen trap on, you need to do regular checks because drones cannot escape through the queen trap and will block the entrance. This can cause the whole swarm to abscond the hive because they must now chew up the drones that's dying in the inside and drag them out and clean the hive. This is just an example of a queen trap. There's one that is been put up on the entrances. You can see it's only 4 millimeters. It's the same size as a queen excluder. So now you trap the queen on the inside. Okay, good. There's just a photo too from burning the hive on the inside, just with 2 pages of a newspaper, a blowtorch, 2 dessert spoons of raw propolis. I just put it on a piece of paper to make it visible. Put it on a high floor, heat it up, and smear it with a putty knife. There's the example with a whiteboard that you can see. It's running with an angle. Scoop, there's a scoop, scoop the bees, throw them on the hardboard, and they will take ownership of the hive. There's an example that we've used, a galvanized supporting bracket, just to secure your hive wherever you are busy working with the removal. Good. Now we're going to move on to cutouts. This method will be applied to bees that is nesting in a cavity in a secluded space, which can be or has to be dismantled or cut open to gain access to the colony and the comb. Remember, the first one is just a hanging swarm, open surface. This is where they are nesting in a cavity or secluded space that can be or has to be open, dismantled to get access to the colony. It's also applicable to settled colonies that is in other structures, like in bins and drains and water features, but where there's already lots of comb, honey and brood. Remember, a cutout refers to cutting out all the comb and propolis, all the brood. A cutout doesn't refer to cut open the structure. It's about cutting out all the comb and cleaning out the nest. The preparation for the removal is exactly the same. The box, this is the only difference between cutouts and all the other methods of removals. Here you're going to use, in this case, you're going to use off-center brood frames. I will show you just now what is an off-center brood frame. With rubber bands, and the amount that you're going to prepare off-centers will be determined by the amount of comb with brood in the nest and comb with pollen and capped honey. It's not always possible to determine prior, but you can make a judgment on the time of the year, the season, and the period that the swarm is in the cavity. An off-center frame is not wired through the center. There's an example. There's the normal eyelets that's in the center of the frame. I've changed this frame myself. I've drilled holes to the side of the sidebar and wire the frame through these eyelets. This is just to create space. If the wires is running on the edge of the sidebar, it creates space where you can place the comb on the frame, so it is still flush on the same level as the top bar. And then you fix it with rubber bands around the top bar and the bottom bar. Good. You prepare your brood frames with full wax foundation sheets or frames with drawn comb from the disease-free colonies, and fill the spaces that's not going to be used by the off-center frames. Prepare 4 separate containers, buckets with lids. Have it ready, like in the 5 P's. Proper planning prevents poor performance. Have a bucket for white wax or dark wax for your propolis and for your honey. Separate it on site, because afterwards when you leave and you get to your store, you in any case need to separate. Don't make a big mess and put all the cutout comb and propolis in one bucket. We're going to deal in the cutouts. How do you transfer the colony? Always start again, a couple of gentle smoke puffs. Place your beehive in a position higher than the nesting area. This is important. The previous one was underneath the colony. When you're going to start to work, this is the next step that you take. Your prepared beehive, put it out in a space, use your supporting bracket, and put it higher than the normal entrance, the flight path of the nesting area. Create a walkway, if it is possible, between the nesting area and the hive entrance. In secluded nesting spaces, start by cutting the structure on the opposite side of the entrance to the nest. Let me show you. The picture is not here. Sorry, I will show you just now. What I mean is, if you look at the nesting area and it's in a structure, and it is possible, start by dismantling the structure on the opposite side of the entrance of the nest. It just creates a little bit of confusion to the guard bees. I had a saying always, you need to dislocate the colony before you can relocate it. You need to open up and do that from the back door, not the front door. You must open up the nesting area to expose the entire nest, all the comb. Then you first identify the comb with excessive amounts of open and closed brood, gap brood. Go and have a look for that. Then you cut your way open to the brood with comb. Place them in an off-center frame. Important to remember, the natural top side that was top in the nesting area must be top on your off-center frame. Prioritize frames with brood and get them into the hive as quickly as possible. This brood will serve as the #1 attraction for the queen and the rest of the bees. If you can get the comb with brood inside, on the off-centers inside the hive, that is where the queen, the nurser bees, and the other worker bees want to be. So use the brood as your lure to get the bees into the box. Then you fix the comb with pollen and with honey that you will cut out to off-centers. You add that to the outside positions of the frames. You fill the empty spaces. After you've done that, you fill the empty spaces with wax foundation or drone comb. Then you can gently smoke the rest of the bees, gently smoke them in the direction of the entrance. Or you can scoop them up and place them at the hive entrance. I have a lot of patience during this process and enjoy the beauty of nature while the colony takes ownership of the hive. Then you need to clean the nesting area of all excess comb and propolis. Remember what we said under the guidelines in professionalism. Make sure you don't leave an attraction for the next colony just to nest in the same spot, and you leave the owner with the same problem. There's the two pictures there. You can see this is the wall of the building. The entrance was on the outside, and I've opened it on the inside to expose the whole colony. And there's everything been cut out afterwards. Couple of practical tips with regards to cutting out. Sorry about that. It's all the same as I've mentioned with in the beginning with the shakings, and then in the case of drains or valves, you can add a squirt of insect repellent, like you don't want to promote like peaceful sleep, something that's not harmful to the bees. It can be sprayed right at the bottom of the hole after the comb was removed. That will just give the bee some extra speed to exit. Don't spray it directly on the comb or on the bees. And there's just another picture of opening of a soffit. First thing when you open it up, determine or locate the brood with the comb with brood, cut that out, get it on an off center, put it in the hive. Next thing, cut out the brood with honey and pollen, add that to the hive, and afterwards clean everything. This is an example where I had to open a ceiling. You can see it's right at the corner of the house. To do the removal on the inside of the ceiling is almost impossible because there's no space for movement. then you need to dismantle the structure. And that is cutouts. There's an example, the nesting area was in a shrub. Clean it out, then you create a walkway somewhere with a piece of branch from the ground to the hive entrance. The bees will take it and they will use it as a walkway. There's an example where I've closed underneath the whiteboard with a piece of cloth that the bees don't go underneath. There's only one way is to the hive entrance. An example of scooping the bees and adding them to the box on top. And again, the one that they enter from by themselves. That is cutouts. We're going to look at a force abscond. This is forcing a swarm to abscond the nest by applying constant, gentle, cold smoke or a chemical repellent like benzaldehyde. This is a good option to use in case of time constraints to restrict structural damages, costs, and where dismantling of the nesting structure is not the option. So you cannot dismantle because of specific reasons. Then you need to do a force abscond. Preparation for removal. A forced abscond does not imply that you will not be able to transfer the colony to a hive. There is just, however, a bigger risk with this method that the colony will abscond to a position out of reach or a distance away. To cover this, you can use more than one hive. Put it out almost like a catch box. Take 2 or 3 hives because you don't know where they're going to move to. It's not necessarily that they will stay together like this picture showed in an air vent. We've used a piece of pipe to the smoker, get the smoke behind the cone. It's not always that they will cluster there and you can put the box here or on the top of the roof. They can get airborne and go somewhere else. So put another box out in the vicinity or more than one. Again, based on the decision of using a nuke and the size of the swarm, exactly the brood box will be filled exactly the same way, 1 to 4, 7 to 10, and then on the inside you will use 2 strip frames because you're not, with a force abscond, you're not going to cut out cone to add to the colony. Give them place to cluster together and put 2 strips in the middle. Prepare your benzaldehyde. A piece of plastic pipe, this normal drip irrigation pipe, the green irrigation pipe is excellent. It fits like a hand in a glove on a syringe. And there's benzaldehyde. Prepare everything. Your removal procedure will work as follows. You place the hive in position, again, higher than the flight path of the colony, because they will move upwards. If it's possible to create a forced abscond with the use of smoke only, you don't always need benzaldehyde or chemical repellent. But this is more likely in the case of a small swarm, a young swarm. There's not much comb or brood yet. Never over smoke the colony. Very important. Then next, when smoke is not successful, a chemical repellent can be used. The substance must be applied as far back or down from the cone, on the opposite side of the entrance to the nest as possible. Don't just apply the chemical in front of where the entrance is. Then you're going to drive the bees inwards. Use the piece of pipe, maneuver it down past the cone as far possible into the nest, and then apply the benzaldehyde. You can fill it with 10 milliliters, and you apply it through the pipe. The smell will drive the colony out, and the second round can be applied again if necessary. Some practical tips, again, all the same as with shakings. Never overdo the application of the chemical because it will result in disorientated and lots of dead bees. I've seen that. You can wet them too much and they will die. Use it in small, like in 10 ml at a time, and give it time to work. Important to take notice that in a large cavity where there's lots of drafts in the inside of a wall, benzaldehyde won't work because they just go into the next direction and hide somewhere else, and the smell won't reach them. The same with smoke. Another option is you take an air vent, you can just seal up both sides, like on the inside of the room and the outside. Take a piece of paper in a laminated paper. I've usually carried that with me. Seal off the air vent both sides. This is also with a very young swarm, 1 or 2 days old. Leave it closed for 2 days. Day 2, you open the one side, and that swarm will abscond with rapid speed. All of them. And this can also be seen as a forced abscond. We're going to move on to the BVAC. The BVAC is where you suck up a swarm with a modified vacuum cleaner that's connected to a box or a container with a false netted floor, or it's got a netted cartridge on the inside where you suck the bees into. This is a handy method for uneasy nesting areas like ceilings or deep cavities in trees. Remember, I've based this presentation on the BVAC that we've used. You can also connect the BVAC directly to a brood box and you vacuum the bees directly into your box with a floor that's got no entrances, and then you just replace the top part, you replace the floor the same evening or the next day with a proper floor with entrances. Preparation for the removal. There you can just see there's a vacuum cleaner and the pipe connected to the container. The false netted floor is at the bottom here, like in 50 millimeters from the outside the bottom section, and then on top there should be suction pipe. This is on the inside of the BVAC. Right at the bottom is the netted floor. That's just the hole where you connect the pipe from the vacuum. And this is the inlet for the bees, for the black pipe. You can see what I've done is I've used a cover, also with a net. If you cover it afterwards, it creates some airflow. There's ventilation in here, and with the bottom hole that is there, because that has been covered with a net on the floor. This piece of pipe I just built in here afterwards. When you vacuum the bees in, all of them will lie on the floor, on the net here. So it will cover the whole floor. Now if you apply suction, the suction goes through all the bees. I've just bypassed with this baffle, with a lot of holes drilled into it, that the air will flow and will create a flow past the bees. Good. Preparation is again exactly the same as previously, because it's not always that you will cut out comb. Then you use the 2 strips on the inside with strips. You must prepare different lengths of pipe and smaller size nozzles, because it's going to be useful on the removal side. There is an example. Some of that is again with electric pipe, conduit pipe. Cut it also with an angle, attach it to a piece of swimming pool pipe. There is a normal smaller nozzle of a vacuum cleaner that can be used. And this is a typical example of there's no workplace to cut out. Smoke the bees from the comb and vacuum them. The removal procedure always smoke the bees that they can leave the comb and cluster next to it. Do the suction of the bees after they are separated from the comb. Don't suck the bees when they sit on the comb. This suction may damage the comb. You're going to break it off. It's pollen, it's honey, species of comb, and all of them enters the container together with the bees. Unkept honey in that comb will create a big mess with regards to the stickiness on the inside of the suction pipe and the container and the bees, and you will get the bees dying in that mess. Also try not to suck up all the debris in the nest together with the bees in the container. And then put a smaller nozzle to the end of the bee suction pipe for that hard to reach places. After that, start cutting out the comb after the bees have been sucked up. And you transfer the bees from the bee vac container to the hive can be done on the removal site, but the safest option is to do this at the apiary site plus minus 5 kilometers away. Only if your bee vac has sufficient ventilation. Remember, and this is also where sometimes problem can occur, if you move it from the removal site, it must be done at night after dark. Because 30 to 40% of your forages is during the day and a nice sunny day outside. You will only collect 60% of the swarm when doing removal. The other 30 to 40% will join that nesting area only bedtime when they come home and stop working for the day. So don't leave them behind. You can either shake in from the bee vac, or you can just place the bee vac in front of the hive again and let them walk in. It always remains an option again to spot the queen, cage her, put her in the hive. This will enhance the removal process. This is an indication. This was about 9 meters up in the air. That's why we use a 10-meter house, swimming pool house. And the bee vac has got straps that I put on my back. And there you go. This is the method where you open up the bee vac again at an angle, and the bees will walk into the hive. Practical tips, as mentioned, make sure to use a vacuum cleaner with variable speed adjustments, because the normal full speed suction on a vacuum is detrimental to the bees. It's too hard. Remember, it's a bumpy ride for them on the inside. A bee vac causes lots of stress, so be discreet in the application of this method. Make use of a bee suction pipe with a smooth inner surface, if possible, if you can get that. That's why I said it's a bumpy ride for the bees, and it can cause a lot of damage to them. Try and get a smooth inner surface, and always attempt to get that suction pipe as short as possible. You've seen in the previous picture. Rather extend the length between the vacuum and the container, if longer distances need to be done. Keep the bee suction pipe, the black pipe, as short as possible. It's less stress on the bees, less damage to them. Make sure the container has sufficient ventilation. Then we get to a combination. This is straightforward. You've seen now the shakings, the cutouts, and the forceps cons. You will always get normal that bees will cluster in and around the whole nesting site during and after removal due to honey that's been left there or pheromone. Just collect those bees with a vacuum, suck them off, and add them to the rest of the colony. It's just a short video that I will show you that you can see where the bee vac was used and me struggling to get the frames lined up. You will see, just have a look. As soon as the bees are emptied into the box and I put the frames on top of them, how the frames drop to their natural position by own weight. I didn't press on them, push on them, I just put them gently down, and now you can see how they move downwards. The bees climbing onto them, and the frames is dropping into position. You can see we also, at this stage, we use a queen trap, just to get the queen to stay in there during this chaos period for an hour or so. Now, this is a problem. To close this video now. Sorry for this. I need to get this thing off. Can somebody help me?
Gerhard, I think maybe try click the X in the top right-hand corner. That might just close that. Or that one, yeah.
That is leave meeting.
Okay.
Okay, James, he's not on the same place where we are, even though we saw his cursor.
Okay.
Okay, there. Yeah, sorry for that, people. This is also just an example with a young swarm arriving just behind the chimney. There you can see, and it's a hard to reach place. There's shrubs and trees in the way, so that's where you use a beevac to get to them, and then you transfer them to the box. Wait for the rest of the bees for the evening to join up, and Bob's your uncle. There you go. I think we can. The one-way trap is actually the last part. I'm going to show you some pictures how to build the one-way trap, first of all, which works perfectly. You use a base plate 6mm plywood, cut a hole in it, just smaller as the size of a cool drink bottle, plastic cool drink bottle. Cut the bottle with an angle so that it can have an upwards angle. When you fix it to the base plate with a staple gun. Make sure that you pierce in 1mm holes all around the body, all around this body of the bottle, and silicone all the openings here. Make sure you put in enough silicone to close them up. And there you go. Then you use a 22mm polycorp pipe for an extension. Have different lengths also, and the normal nozzles that you get, silicone nozzles in a hardware store, and paint the body black. I will tell you why later. And at the bottom, you glue a 40mm foam base all around. This makes it easier when you fix it to a wall, a face brick wall. This foam will close up all the little holes in between the bricks. You drill 4 holes for your screws in a base plate, and at the bottom you need to melt it in. Make a piece of wire, heat it up, and melt the holes in so that you can get your screws through. And there you go. Fix it over the air vent, bracket next to it, and then you can add your hive, and it is in place. Where and when bees nesting in a cavity in secluded space which cannot be dismantled. The previous one was where you can open up and dismantle. This is where you cannot open and gain access to the comb. And the force at abscond is not effective to the draft or extreme long cavities, where that will not be able to work. Then you do a trap out. You see, this is a tree. We just covered. This was an opening in a trunk. We covered it within a tractor tube tire, tube, and staple it. We just leave one spot where we can put up the trap. And at this stage, the first couple of minutes, half an hour, you don't have to put the pipe on. This will just give the bees extra speed to exit. There's a wall that was not able to be dismantled, so close up all the possible entrances and put up your trap, and there you go. The preparation for your removals is again the same with a brute frames. Then you must prepare your funnel. Make sure the size of the exit hole of your trap out, your funnel, is a minimum of 8 millimeters. That will allow us room for the queen and the drones to exit. I have extra 2 millimeter pipe, different lengths, elbow and T-piece. I will show you just now in pictures. Prepare that. And prepare a supporting bracket to secure the hive. It's always handy to have extra foam select concealant in it to whatever available for sealing off all the alternative exits and entrances. The procedure for the removal of a one-way trap. Apply gentle smoke. Again, what is important with this, different volumes of smoke can be applied, especially for a tree with long and more than one cavity. Then you need to apply smoke at the entrance. Then you will see where the smoke exits for alternative entrances and exits for the bees that you need to seal off. You fit your funnel with an upwards angle over the entire entrance. Mount your hive in position with a landing board plus minus 20 millimeters above the base plate of the funnel. The bees must be able to walk onto the landing board from the base plate and accept it by their own. You can see there's a picture. There's the base plate, and there's the hive fitted next to the wall, and that's a good distance. Make sure that the funnel is the only exit. There are no other openings for the bees to re-enter the nest, and you must make regular visits to confirm this. The bees get trapped on the outside and no more food is entering the nest and the queen stops laying. The last laid egg will only hatch plus minus 21 days later. Therefore, it will be safe to keep a trap in place for a minimum of 4 weeks. This is technical. This is textbook stuff. I don't think in practice it works like this. Because the first, a lot of people, bees that is trapped on the outside, the less bees is inside. The next thing, all the foragers will be trapped outside, first of all, and that will be 30 to 40%. The next thing is a cleansing flight. A lot of bees go out, they will be trapped on the outside. It makes the amount of bees in the inside very few. The last laid eggs will not hatch because there's not more heat enough heat inside. That is why sometimes I've seen a trap out in 2 weeks done and dusted. The queen is out. You can see when the queen is out, and then it's done and dusted. But I've done this because it is technical of the process, biological process of the bees. There's just a small video where you can see a trap out in action. You will see the bees when they exit, they will cluster around here. There's the perforation in the body that will give them the smell of the nest and the pheromone of the queen, and then they will start walking upwards. In this case, the hive was still on top there. I've moved it later on next to the base plate. This was on day 3 of a trap out, the amount of clustering. What you can do is to help the bees, you can scoop them off, throw them in the inside, make them used to the hive. That will help. Yes, I will discuss this now. You can see there was a trap out, the paper was straight out. And later on, I had to put an angle because the bees detected the end, again, the exit hole of the trap out and re-enter the hive. So I've just changed the direction. And you can also play around with the color of the nozzles just to distract the bees, that they don't find the entrance back into the hive again. Some practical tips is always the same as the shakings. Then another key factor of a trap out is that there must be only one exit for the bees. And that is the exit hole, of the funnel. It's not recommended to do trap during the colder months of the year. Lots of stress to the bees. You remember, you separate this colony, the bees that is trapped, you separated them now from the heat of their home, from their food, the pollen, the honey. It's just as I've locked you out last night in the cold without a blanket. That's what's happening to the bees. You trap them out and they've got nothing. If you only have wax foundation sheets in a box there, they need to enter. They don't even have place to load off their pollen. So a one-way trap you must think carefully just to put it up and leave it for 6 weeks. Just another practical tip, if you design your funnel, these measurements are normally standard between the bricks. Pre-drill your holes that it will match the cement part, not the brick. It will just make the fitment easier when you do the removal. There's a standard measurements for these distances. So I've drilled the holes in the base plate that it will always be at the same spot where the cement will be. Then I don't have to drill in a brick. Only the exit end of the funnel must let in sunlight. That's why I covered this in black. I've seen that. I've used it without this. Spray painted. Then the bees will maul around here the whole day. Not the whole day, for a long time. They will maul around here because it is plastic, it's see-through, and it is sunlight. I first covered it just with a piece of material, a cloth, and then all of a sudden you get speed. Then the bees see only the sunlight that is entering here at the end, and that will attract them to exit. That's why I sprayed the body in black. Make sure there's enough preparation and the funnel's body closer to the normal entrance of the nest. You want to attract the bees away from the exit hole. So you've seen that in the video clip now. As soon as they left, they will go back to where they normally entered the nesting area, and with the little holes in the body of the funnel, there's the smell of the nest is there, and the smell of the pheromone, and it attracts them there. And from there, it's only a short distance to the hive entrance. Always thoroughly clean the funnel's escape nozzle from any attractive bee, wax, or honey smells. Your hands will smell of the lure or lemongrass or wax or whatever. And you fit the nozzle in and you fit the pipe in, and you leave the smell on the pipe and the nozzle. That will attract the bees, and they will find the exit hole of the funnel to re-enter the nest. I always clean it with a piece of nice cloth and some detergent. The inner surface of the funnel needs to be rough, and the funnel must be fitted. The upwards angle, we've covered that to support the bees in the exit. Make sure there are not other reference points, branches, or leaves close to the exit of the funnel. If your exit point of the funnel is close by a branch or a leaf, that will be used by the bees as a reference point, and to detect the exit easy, and they will re-enter the hive, and you don't want that. When the bees have found the funnel exit to re-enter, you need to change the direction. I've shown the picture of that, and that's where you can use. There's just two examples. These pipes fit into each other like a hand in a glove. You can change the direction with a 90-degree angle or with a T-piece. We once had to use this one with a huge swarm in the air vent, and it was beautiful to watch the amount of bees that exited on both ends. This one you will also see is a smaller size base plate with a 1-liter cool drink bottle. You need, for smaller trees, the other one with a big base plate for air vent won't work. So make yourself a smaller one that you can fit it over smaller surfaces. That's the one-way trap. Right, the last part. When do you do exterminations? It's for a problematic colony. The nest is an unsafe location. For example, with high voltage electricity, or in the case of high flammable substances. Then a removal is not possible and the colony needs to be exterminated. The urgency of the removal, there's no time for a planned removal due to the nature of the threat, and it needs to be exterminated. Number 3 is an inaccessible colony. There is absolutely no option to gain a safe access, a working platform, a surface for the remover to do the task. And then at the end, a colony, American foulbrood infected colonies. AFB is a notifiable disease, and the colony has to be exterminated. If AFB is detected at the removal site, these principles must apply also, and the client must be informed about this in no uncertain terms. And then there is by law no prescribed chemical to exterminate bees. And this must always be the last resort. The only stoffel and key has got papers to do exterminations whenever they like to, because they're allowed to. Right, this is the end. Following above mentioned guidelines and principles will enhance the professional beekeeping industry, I think, with harmony between nature, the bees, the beekeeper, and the public. Just again for clarification, these documentations that's been written, the description paragraph has been done and dusted. It's published on the WhatsApp group. The standards has been published there. The removal agreement will go to the website, and it was published on the WhatsApp group. What we've dealt with today was the guidelines and the training notes. The guidelines will be on the website, and I will publish it on the WhatsApp group. The training notes will go to the members area. Then James, the committee, to you and to the rest of the members, I think we can work on a framework for a quotation. I can make my email address available. Then if we can get all the inputs from all the members, what do we need to put on a quotation to make sure that we do proper quotations for removal, then we can proceed and draft a document like that. And that is open for discussion and for the committee now. Let's go and win this. Thank you. I just wanna conclude. I think from the organization side, events like this is what can be done to enhance the service and empower the members. It is now up to everyone who are listed as a remover to step up and improve on their work ethics and claim to be professional and skillful. That's my story for today. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Gerhard, I just want to add to what you said. Sorry, James. It's of utmost importance. Gerhard, sorry, if you can stop sharing your screen, then we can see all the people again. Thanks. Yeah, the bee removals to me is the people that are doing bee removals, the beekeepers that are doing bee removals. You are one of the most important group of people in any association, because you are the true ambassadors for WCBA whenever you do bee removals. And that's quite important to me, because we are trying, as a committee, we are trying to build out our name, and you are actually the feet going out to people. So when I've done bee removals in the Cape Town area, I always compiled a little pamphlet so that they know what is a drone, what is a worker bee, what is the difference. And actually, you are the teachers on the go. You are the guys that need to teach the public as well. So compile, do your work and be the ambassadors for WCBA, but also be the true ambassadors for our bee population. So it's quite important to understand that and go out in humbleness and do your thing that you can do best, and yeah, be our ambassadors. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gerhard, for the presentation. It was indeed very professional and well done. Are there any questions for Gerhard?
James, I see there was a question about, is there practical, let me just find it here again. It was Adam Ali. Are there any practical training available for the newbies in the group? I don't want to answer. I think there will be, but I think COVID is currently in a way, but I think from your side you can answer Adam on that, please.
Yeah, I think as soon as COVID is out of the way, definitely we should be having some type of practical. Something, as you said in your presentation, this type of topic is always best actually done in person, practically hands-on. But bearing the constraints that we've got with COVID, this was the best that we can do, and it actually I learned a lot last time from your presentation, and this time I've learned even more. So, and particularly with the legal aspects and all that, I think that was great. There's somebody who wants to ask a question. Please go ahead.
Thank you, James. And to Gerhard, as a newbie, I really found it very useful. I do have a question which might be showing my naivety, but I am the one who asked the question about the chimney. So I have about 3, I know it's not the right time of the year to be doing this, but the people really wanted the bees moved. So I've tried the trap out, and I have in the hive alongside about 3 full frames of bees that are there. And I'm just wondering if I did try to give them a frame of brood, but I'm not clear whether there is any queen there and whether they had enough resources to make the queen. So my question is the Cape worker bee able to make its own queen without providing any brood to them?
Okay. Yes, sure. Capensis is the only species that is able, where the workers can take over the duties, and then that they can create their own queen. That is the only species from about 20,000 of bees, species of bees that can do that. We must always keep in mind with American fowl brood that we are careful in feeding or supporting a colony with brood, or then for that matter, frames with honey or pollen from other colonies. Because it can easily be the easy transfer of AFB from the one colony to another. But yes, supporting rather with, I believe, sugar water 1-to-1 at that stage. What we did lately is we used 2 bags of sugar water in a top feeder. The one bag will be a 1-to-1, and then the second one that we put in is a 2 sugar to 1 water, just to give a variety to the bees. I think it's a better practice to use that method than put in. We never did with honey from another colony or brood from another colony. You must be definitely or really sure, if you use that from another colony, that it is a disease-free colony on clinical symptoms only. I hope that answers your question. I don't know, James, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, what we normally, whenever we do bee removals, what we normally look out for is if there's pollen coming in. that's a sure sign that your queen is there and that they are laying eggs already. Because the young larvae need to be fed every 10 minutes. So there will be a strong bees coming in with pollen. And this time of the year, bees normally are in the build-up phase. I don't know which area you are in, but where we are, you can sometimes see my queen laying eggs, and on the outside, you will see the workers also doing their thing. So, yeah, but normally with bee removals, that's something that I look out for.
Gerhard, we've got a couple of questions here on the chat.
Yeah, I went through them just now. Can I proceed and answer them, or do you want to deal with it?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Just want to read them now one by one. Thanks, I've given them sugar water. How do I transfer a colony from a catch box? Is Moira. How do I transfer a colony from a catch box to a hive at apiary site? Actually, it's very easy. It depends on if your catch box is the same size, is a brood box size, then you just take out the frames. I do it normally 3 at a time to keep the comb and the bees together, and especially the brood. Loosen them up carefully, take them 3 at a time, and just put them over from the one box to the other. And normally I kept them in the same positions, the same sequence. Just put them over and close the box again. Ian Brown, what do you mean by a 1-to-1 for sugar water? 1-to-1 is 1 kilos of sugar mixed with 1 liter of water. Don't boil the water, just make it lukewarm, and you mix the sugar and the water. And also a bag. We normally use the normal Jiffy bags, the kitchen Jiffy bags, freezer bags. We fill it up with about 1.2 liters, 1 liter, 1.2 liter in the bag. Then you can use Ziploc, but it's too expensive. You tie it with a knot, get all the air out as far as possible, tie it with a knot. You put it in the top feeder, and you punch a couple of holes with a else or with a knife, small little holes, 8 to 10 holes. It won't leak out. It stays inside. Then the bees go in and they suck the sugar water out. They will do that in 2 days. They will finish up 2 bags easily. Let me just go through the questions further on. The newbies can volunteer to other beekeepers to help them when they do removals. It's sharing and caring, and it's the best way to learn by doing. Audrey de Jong, excellent, that is true. Don't be scared to phone or to WhatsApp and to ask. It's either a yes or a no, but don't be scared to ask somebody to assist. Compliance. Can we advise the general public that is Lali? I would like to ask in terms of compliance, what can be advised the general public in case where a non-registered beekeeper wants to perform bee removals? Should they decline or proceed with the beekeeping? Have a negative influence on the industry when the job is not. Well, everybody's got their own choices. There's a law. There's an act. You can direct them to the department's website. You can give them the paper in hand. That is what the law states. At the end of the day, it's still up to the person if he's going to use, whoever he's going to use. But if there's unregistered beekeepers, it can be reported to Department of Agriculture also. Let me go further. Pest control. Are pest control operators allowed to kill bees when requested by a client if the colony cannot be removed? This is a difficult, interesting question, and I've struggled with it. There's different answers, I believe, to this. Is this a beekeeping activity? And the law states only registered beekeepers can execute beekeeping activities. There's no registered product chemical on the market that may be used to exterminate bees. So what are they going to use? If they use something else, they're off label. Yeah, it's not a straightforward, easy answer, Adam. But I'm going to leave it at that. I know certain pest control companies were instructed by their head office that they won't touch bees, leave it to beekeepers. I just hope that everybody can apply that rule. Instead of a plastic bag for sugar water can 1 liter ice cream bucket floated to prevent the bees from drowning. Yeah, sure. You can do that. With a plastic bag, it still allows you some movement if you need to move a hive, then, but it's also not recommended. But you can use a bucket and anything, yes. And that's it at this stage, what I can see, James.
Yeah, thanks, Gerhard. I also don't see any other questions.
I just want to come in, James. I'm not full-time doing bee removers, but to those of you that want to do full-time and want to become professional, my son bought me the FLIR one thermal camera for my Android, and that's something. Is something that I think someone that want to do it for income, you have to have a thermal camera whenever you do bee removals. My BVAC, I only work with BVAC, benzaldehyde, and my FLIR, because I do believe that the bees shouldn't be stressed that much. So, and I do believe in cost effectiveness. So I go in, I check in with my FLIR exactly where the bees are. You can see it through the walls, through the trees, so you can do exact bee removal. Go in, if it's in a wall, I will drill holes around it, do the benzaldehyde thing, wait for it for 10 minutes, and the bees will walk out. I will wait until the evening, do the, my BVAC look different than Gerhard's one. I've got a floor with entrances where I will take my bee box, my hive. I will take the floor off, put it on my BVAC floor, and then right at the back is a thick sponge, so that if the extraction, we normally extract with very, very low suction, and then on top is the mesh part and the top box. So I can put photos on, I can give it to you, Gerhard. It's different. So I extract immediately into my box. I take my hive out the next morning, I take it away that evening immediately, because I can extract everything. I take it away when it's dark. You go to the apiary site before sun up or before morning light, but normally like an hour or 2 hours after we place the hives in the apiary, we will change the bottom board, put the hives exact floorboard back. So the next morning they will get their first feeding. They open, when they go out, they are immediately where they should be. I never put queen things in front, we keep the queen in. I try to work as natural as possible, with the less amount of stress as possible. So I don't look for a queen. I just try to get the job done as quick as possible and with as less suction possible. So we only also put 4 frames of brood with different sizes of brood, no honey, but with pollen. And then during the, say for instance, around about midday, we change the top part as well, and then start doing top feeding. And you will see the next morning, within a day after you place them, they will start bringing in pollen, which then to me is a sign that my queen is laying. And by doing that way, I've never lost a swarm. A swarm never absconded me. And if you look well after your swarms, you've got a very nice and big swarm very soon after it. Yeah, but the fleur is something that if you're serious, you have to get that.
On the flare, there are a couple of other alternatives. I know cat phones have a thermal camera. There's also another phone on the market called Blackview. It's a cheaper version, but also there's a Blackview with a thermal camera. But thermal cameras are very handy. There's also an item called an endoscope. You can get the cheap ones that plug into your phone for about 300-400 rand, that if you can't see into a cavity, you can drill a hole and stick the camera through the hole on it comes on like a pipe come wire that you can actually poke into a hole or into a ceiling or into a void and actually see what is there. Most of them have got an infrared light or a white light that can be turned on as well to see what's inside. But a thermal camera is always a good option. It's definitely better than an endoscope, but sometimes you need to get kind of behind corners or around something, and an endoscope can also be very handy for that. Are there any more? I see Adams asked where can you get the thermal camera, and any idea of costs? Just Google that. The actual flares are quite expensive. I know in the electrical industry we use them quite a lot, and they can range, for a standalone thermal camera that doesn't connect to your phone, can range upwards of 30,000. But you can get cheaper versions for, I see somebody said that for just over 8,000, one that attaches to a phone. So yeah, just have a look around there. There's a lot of options available. I know the cat phone with the thermal imager is about, I think, 8,000-9,000, and the Blackview phone is a little cheaper than that still. And then there's a lot of other Chinese imports that you could get that are probably a lot cheaper as well, but I can't say how good they are. Gerhard, any other points that you would like to put forward?
It's just the issue that I left in the air now, James. I don't know what. I believe that everyone here will say yes if we talk about the framework for a quotation. But I've never ever taken the option of repairing a dismantled structure. So I always said I'm a beekeeper, I'm not a builder, but I know there's other people that will take on and plaster and cement and repair what they have damaged. So I'm a bit stupid with putting a quotation together and including all that possibilities. I've put one together in the meantime, just a draft with my ideas, but I would really like to get inputs on this, then I can do that, and then we can make it available. It's like the agreement, a genuine. I know it's going to be a slip now to get people to accept that and do that and be professional, because that is where we want to be. But it's going to take you 10 minutes because all the info is already there. It's just a question of mark it and sign it. And my idea is the same with a quotation. Do it in Excel, get all the different possibilities that you need to include to cost, and it will make it easier for the people. So if they're going to send it, they can send their answers to info at WCBA, and then it can be forwarded to me and I will do it. It's no problem. And then just lastly, there's another way of step up the professionalism if we want to. It's just an idea that if there was a request and one of the members has taken up the job, then we can create a feedback page on a website where the public can go and give feedback whether they're happy, what mistakes that have been made or whatever, or vice versa, from top the client can be phoned and asked, were you happy with the service that were provided? But I don't want to make it a school show. I think the better option is provide a place where public can give feedback to Western Cape, the association, with regards to removals. It's just a thought. Thanks.
Gerhard, I would love to do that, because I sometimes check up some of the, whenever people phone me and I forward it to the your WhatsApp groups, I will phone them the next morning, because as I said previously, the WCBA name is to me very important, the brand and the top job that we are doing. So I regularly check up on people. I would have preferred if in the beginning people don't comment publicly, and we can rather place it on public domains, because the past month the biggest complaints were from the WhatsApp removal groups from the public, is that guys would come and say they take the WhatsApp, and I've placed that on WhatsApp, and then people will come and have a look at the job and they never pitch again. So that is the most regular complaint currently from the WhatsApp chat group, that people felt that they just didn't respond back, that no, I'm going to refer it back to the group or something like that. So just to prevent negative things coming out, I would rather like the people to rather email the info WCBA, and then we can place it on and to follow up first, instead of it going public while we are setting up this whole system at the moment. And then just something else, one of the people asked me when these videos will be loaded on the WhatsApp, and I replied, no, by accident replied privately. So for the rest of you, under the members area, there is already videos loaded. There's a YouTube link, a private YouTube link to the videos, and this one will be loaded on Monday. Gerhard, perhaps you can just give, there's questions on my WhatsApp coming through for your contact details, if you want to give it out to the group, if people perhaps want to contact you directly or to be added to the group.
No problem. My email address is gsoli4@webmail.co.za. Just going to repeat it. It's gsoli4@webmail.co.za. And then on the WhatsApp chat group or the removal chat group, they will find my number there, my cell phone number. I think there was also a request from somebody, how do they get on the removal group? I'm currently an admin there, but I haven't got the source info of all the members, because only the members can be loaded onto the WhatsApp group, but I haven't got a members list, so I cannot add you. Nick Gitger is currently the admin that's doing that.
Gerhard, what you do, if there's somebody that wants to be added, you just contact me and I can say yes or no, or some of the people already asked me, so I checked and I'll give you the list this afternoon. But you can just regularly check with me if there's a request coming through.
Excellent, thank you. So if there's any suggestions with regards to the quotation framework that we want to draft, please send me emails direct. Thanks.
Yeah, Gerhard, also with the building part or rebuilding, I could probably give you some assistance there. I am in the building industry, so I'd be able to give you some assistance there on compiling that part of the quotation form. Are there any last questions for Gerhard? If you want to ask a question, you can just unmute your mic. Okay, Gerhard, I don't see any other questions. I just want to thank everybody for attending this morning's session. It was very informative, as I've already said, and I'm sure we all learned a lot. As I said, I also learned a lot more. I do bee removals, not many, but I definitely got a good few tips today, this morning. Thanks very much, Gerhard, for the presentation. I can see that there was a lot of time and effort that actually went into compiling the presentation. I'm sure many hours went into putting all the slides together and everything. Thanks very much. It was really appreciated. And to everybody who attended today's event, once again, thanks very much. As Riet said, all of this will be put on our website. So we do normally have a little bit of a time delay. And then this will normally only be posted on the members area of our website. So it will be for members only normally. But thanks everybody for attending today. And once again, thank you to Gerhard for a wonderful presentation. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you, James. Keep well.
Bye.
Gerhard, het jy kansie gehad om deur die comments te lees?
Ek het ja, maar daar's vir baie ek het
Ek
maar vinnig.
Okay, ek sal vir jou dit druk uit en kom na my rekenaar, dus ek sal vir jou aanstuur. So
Ook
dan
want ek wou juist gevra het, miskien is daar nou dalk 'n comment wat ons dalk kon gemis het. Iemand dalk 'n antwoord wil hê. So jy gaan dit alles hê.
ja, ek sal dit alles hê. Ek sal opvolg, maar ek sal sommer vir jou ook aanstuur. En veral want dit is mos 'n betrekking op jou by op julle bee removal groep, so ek sal dit net vir jou aanstuur.
Ja.
Baie dankie.
Ja. Nee, is reg, is dit bitter moeilik om praktiese goed in teorie aan te lees like. En jy sit met jouself en praat. Het jy 'n audience, jy het nie iemand se oë om te sien hierdie en verstaan nie. Maklik.
Toe maar, ek het 'n nota gemaak sodra as ons nou weet wat met die lockdown aangaan. So ek het 'n nota hier gemaak, dan sal ek dadelik as ons nou mag weer vergader, dan sal ek reël dat daar 'n praktiese bee removal ene is. Johan van As het nog 'n hondehok by 'n swermende hondehok wat ek nie wil hê hy moet uithaal nie, so ek sal reël vir dit.
Okay.
Okay.
Nee, dis goed.
Baie dankie.
Lekker dag.
Dieselfde dag. Bye.